This dress has been everywhere lately, and for some reason I thought making it myself was a good idea. I've never shirred fabric before, not once, no practice runs and no backup plan. I'm pattern hacking this using a swimsuit pattern and a mini skirt pattern, which already feels a little ambitious. But that's kind of the point. I want to see what happens when I try something new, and hopefully I end up with a dress I'll actually wear. So if you feel like learning alongside me, I'd love the company. Welcome back to another episode on Sew Simone. I'm Simone and I'm sharing my journey as a beginner-ish sewist. And if you are back for another episode, I'm so grateful to have you here. Now, before we even get started, I'm just going to show you the tools that we'll be using. As soon as I saw this fabric in the store, I was like, I know exactly what I'm doing with that. It is a very cute zebra print in a brown and a cream. Unfortunately, my fabric store doesn't label everything very well, but what I believe this to be is a cotton linen blend. It's very soft, very lovely, and it actually has the exact same feel as this fabric, which I have sewn before. I made a pair of pajama pants and my space case. I keep all of my supplies in there. Then I've got 2 spools of elastic thread for the shirring. I've got 1 or 2 rolls of white thread, white gutterman thread. Although now I'm kind of regretting not getting a brown thread. I think that would have looked a lot nicer. It's okay, it'll be fine. Now when I say that I have a 0 shirring experience, I literally have never shirred a single thing in my life. So before I touch my real fabric, I'm going to be taking the scrap fabric and I'm going to test out my shirring settings and my technique first before we get into this.
Quite a lot of elastic in there.
I just got a universal pack of Schmetz, so I'm going to be putting a 12 in. And then I think we're ready to go. I wound my bobbin not too tightly. According to the tutorials that I watched, you want a little bit of tension, but not too much tension. And I've got my regular thread up at the top. I've got my stitch length at 3.5 and I've got a regular straight stitch. So I think we are ready to get going. Okay, let's see. First ever shirred stitch. Let's see. Yeah. That doesn't sound right. Oh no. Nope, something is wrong there. Oh yeah, something is definitely wrong here. I don't want to break anything.
How's it going?
Not well. We have the most feline-like dog I've ever met in my life. He is so delicate and dainty around the camera equipment, and I'm so grateful for that. All right, this is attempt number 5. Every single time it has gotten all jammed up and messed up in the machine. So I'm not exactly sure what's happening. I've tried to adjust the tension each time, but the thing is, every time it gets jammed, it's actually ripping holes in my fabric. So I don't know. That went a lot longer than any other attempt, but it still definitely is not right. I'm just going to have to go and do a little bit more research, troubleshoot this a little bit more, and hopefully we can eventually get to a stage where I can successfully create a shirred stitch. Otherwise, we can't even remotely start moving on with the dress. So I'll be back in a bit. It seems like my issue very well might be linked to the tension. I've got my machine in a 0 tension, and basically the internet told me that you need to have tension, otherwise the top thread is going to be too slack and it's not going to actually pick up my elastic. And from the looks of things, that's exactly what my problem is here. So I am going to be putting my tension in 4, just as the internet has suggested. Oh, it's caught real bad. Oh gosh. I can't get it out, so I have bad news. I'm gonna have to take the whole plate off so that I can get this nest out before we can even try and continue, because obviously it's not going to work like this. So yeah, we're over an hour in and I do not have one successful stitch yet, but I am determined we are going to get this right today. I think I'm going to put my tension in 5. Maybe I should try, okay. No, I'm putting my tension in 5. So it's going from 4 to 5. So let's see.
You found it?
I think so.
Awesome.
We have a winner. Oh my gosh, that is so great. Oh, it looks so lovely. Okay, so now that I've figured it out, I have got my machine on a straight stitch on a length of 4 with a tension at 5. And when I threaded my bobbin, I didn't pull the elastic thread too hard, but I kept a consistent tension the whole way around. So that seems to be the answer, at least for my machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm now just going to practice a little bit just to make sure that I've got the technique right. And then I think we can move on to our main fabric. Praise the Lord. Looks great. Wow, Eames, come watch him. I love it. Actually shrinks. Okay, so we have now successfully conquered one hurdle, which is learning how to shirr. The second hurdle is I'm pattern hacking this. I'm actually following a tutorial by Rosary Apparel. She pattern hacks one of her own patterns and she makes a dress very, very similar to this. I just love the way her dress turned out. It's so beautiful. So I will link that below if you're looking for more of a tutorial. But now, what I'm actually using to hack my own dress is a Sewing with Solana bathing suit, because I think that the bodice actually fits me very well. And then for like the basque waist skirt portion of it, there is a free pattern called the Kyra mini skirt, which you might have seen me make before. I'm going to be combining all of these things, shortening some things, lengthening other things to kind of try and make the vision that I have in my head come to life. I'm not sure. Okay, so now for the pattern hacking portion of this. I have no idea exactly what I need to do, but I'm just going to try and figure this out to the best of my ability. So we'll start with the front bodice, and then this is the front yoke from the Kyra mini skirt. Let's see where I want the basque waist to start. So if I place my yoke here, I've got this extra space here from the bodice, which is going to mean that my point needs to be realigned. I'm just going to push it up a bit, maybe there. Yeah, okay. I think that will work. So this is press stick. I'm just going to be using press stick to stick this on because I do want to still be able to use these pattern pieces in the future. So in my country, we have this saying where you really have to like figure out a plan when things are not working out and you really have to use your brain to make it work. The saying goes, "A boer maak 'n plan," which is translated to "a farmer makes a plan." So today I am the farmer and we are making a plan. Moving on to the back bodice piece. Now this is my back yoke piece, and I think, yeah, it's also got to go back to front. But then what is that? That is not going to work. You know what? I think what would probably make more sense is if I've got my neckline lined up and my yoke pieces actually match up. So we've got the same length on the bodice. The only thing is this area over here. So I think it would work out if I cut down a little bit of the sizing of this back yoke and just made it in line with the back bodice. So something like that. I made a little bit of a mistake. I was trying to get the middle seams to line up, but at the time I didn't actually realize that this line is just going to be the middle of the back bodice, and this is going to be the middle of the front bodice. So therefore my side seams where the skirt is going to be is obviously not going to line up. So it's not a train smash. All I need to do here is just line up the underarm piece. And then this is where we want the side seams to match. So what I'm going to have to do is just make a mark here on the back bodice and kind of follow that line around and cut this piece off. I'm pretty happy with what my bodice pieces are looking like right now. Now what I've got to do is each of the bodice pieces, we've got to take a piece of fabric that is 4 times the length of the current bodice piece patterns. And this is going to account for the shrinkage that will happen when we shirr the fabric. So I'm going to need 2 big rectangular pieces and a smaller rectangular piece for our, what do you call these things? For our sleeves. Wild night, I wanna keep you close. So I decided to do a little test piece on my real fabric, and it was going wonderfully. I was at the very end of my 4th row, and then for some reason the fabric got trapped. It got like pulled into the sewing machine, which means that something is wrong. But additionally, when I tried to very gently pull the fabric out and cut the thread, it actually ripped a hole in my fabric. By the way, if you're thinking about learning how to sew, I promise you it's not this frustrating most of the time. Sometimes it is a little bit frustrating, but most of the time it's a lot of fun. So I don't want this video to discourage you. This is just the reality of learning a new skill, I guess. Ah, yes. Oh yeah, there's a whole nest of thread tangled up in here. Oh my gosh, look at this. Oh, and it's all broken. That's weird. So that's weird. That's all of this thread. I don't know if you can see it. It's not one continuous piece. The pieces have been broken. So something is definitely going wrong here. I don't know what that something is. So I'm just going to keep on practicing on my test piece until I've got it down. Because if I make a mess on my big rectangles, I'm going to have to go back to the fabric store and buy more of this fabric. That's the situation we're in right now. Okay, it is a new day to sew a shirred dress. Yesterday I was just about to start shirring my main fabric square and something said to me, Simone, you need to practice first. And I'm so grateful that I did. So what I did is I started with a test piece, and I thought it was going really well. I mean, it's not bad. I don't know if you guys can see, but this is not as stretchy as you would want a shirred fabric. And what actually happened here is big pleats started to form, and the more rows of stitches that I did, the stronger the pleats became. So these pleats have literally made our fabric fold over like that, and they're kind of locked in place. So it's really distorted the fabric and made it a lot stiffer than you would like. Plus these channels are actually very visible, and I would imagine the further you go down with stitches, the more visible it will become. So now this is my second test strip, and it turned out amazingly. You guys can see it's very nice and stretchy. It's very even. There's absolutely no pleating happening whatsoever. Just to be clear, this is not a shirring tutorial. You guys can see that I'm brand new at this, but I would just like to share a few small tweaks that I made between these 2 pieces of fabric that made a world of difference. Actually, just for reference, these test squares were the exact same size to start, and look how they ended up. This is obviously the good one. This is the not so good one. Number 1 is, I had that issue where my fabric was pulling into the machine. What I realized is I was stitching far too close to the edge of the fabric, so that was really encouraging the fabric to be pulled in by the foot dogs. I don't know what they're called. So what I did the second time around is I made sure to leave quite a nice bit of fabric on each end, so I wasn't going too close to the edge. So with this second round, I didn't get any of my fabric pulling into the machine. Number 2 is I realized that sewing fast while you're shirring does not do you any favors. I think that is actually why it made my fabric so taut, and I think that's why it was actually pulling my fabric in. So the second time around, I was very mindful of going a lot slower with my piece, and it worked wonders. The third thing is with my second piece, I decided to make my rows a little bit further apart, and that made a world of difference. I think specifically in the overall sizing of these two pieces, you can see it makes such a big difference. But I think because the rows are not so on top of each other, it makes for a much more even, pleasant looking piece, but it's also a lot more stretchy, just as you would want with your shirring pieces. There's one last thing that I did that I think really helped to avoid forming these like pleats that happened the first time around. With this first test piece, I was just feeding it through the machine, just guiding it through. But I think that's what actually encourages the pleats to happen. With the second piece of test fabric, I actually had my hands on either side of the fabric, gently flattening the fabric and guiding it through at the same time. And I didn't get a single pleat in this. And I think it really has to do with me helping to flatten the fabric out so those pleats actually can't form. I wouldn't recommend pulling the fabric. I wasn't putting too much tension at all. I was just kind of like flattening it out, and that made the world of difference. Obviously, I'm not a shirring expert, but you can see just with those minor adjustments in my technique, the end result is wildly different. All right, my machine is all set up and we're about to start working on the first rectangle of fabric. Okay, so it has been literally 2 days since I turned this camera on. It took a lifetime to show these two big rectangles, but we are done and I'm so happy with the final result. They're looking very beautiful. I think that this fabric, this pattern in particular, looks so good with shirring because you can still clearly see the zebra print, but it's just like a lot more condensed. But yeah, eventually after like a few hours of working with the fabric, I definitely got a better feel, a better understanding of like how to shirr correctly. But anyways, we've got our two pieces for our back and our front bodice. And now the original plan was to do fully shirred sleeves as well. But I don't think I want that because I don't think I want like a tight sleeve. I feel like that would be irritating. So I've been racking my brain as to what to do for the sleeve. This is more the vibe that I think I'd like to go for the sleeve, but not quite as puffed. And I've actually had a look at my fabric, and I definitely don't have enough to make such a puffed sleeve. So I can't use the sleeve pattern that I used for this blouse. I don't know if this theory that I have is correct. What I'm thinking is taking the sleeve pattern that came with the bathing suit pattern that I've hacked into the bodice pieces, cutting it in half, and adding another piece of paper onto it just to widen it, to give us that bit of extra fabric so that we can make the basting stitch and the little bit of the puff over here. And then just closing the sleeve off with maybe 3 or 4 rows of shirrs over here. So it does come in tight, but it's got a little bit more of a cap sleeve type of vibe. And what else? So, I'm following Janelle's video over on Rosary Apparel where she recreates this dress. And what she does is she closes her sleeves and her neckline off with the most beautiful effect. She uses a contrasting thread, but she uses her overlocker to close it off. So she doesn't have to do hems or anything like that. But I don't have an overlocker. So I've really been thinking about what is the best way to close off my neckline without having to do bias binding. I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of an interfacing, but that is something that I'm going to have to draft myself. I don't know, there's a lot of hacking going on here, a lot of guessing, a lot of hoping and wishing. But yeah, so far I'm just really happy with the way that the shirring has gone. Before I can actually cut these pieces out, I need to steam them because in order to like lock in the thread and the elastic, you have to steam it because we're going to be cutting it. And if I don't steam it before we cut it, I think it's all going to unravel. So yeah, let's just do that quickly. To cut the bodice pieces out, I found it was easiest to pin the edges of the rectangle together to ease some of the fabric roll. I'm pulling on this cut out piece and nothing is unraveling, so that is fantastic news. Then I moved on to cutting out my remaining pieces, which was the front and back interfacing, the sleeves and the 2 skirt pieces. I then moved on to preparing our tie, which will go into our keyhole opening. And to finish off our interfacing, I did a zigzag stitch and a small hem, which makes it pretty neat. So we just took our dog's head for his walk, and it ended up being like 2 hours, and now it's night time. And my husband is making a milk tart, which is a special type of dessert from my country because we're going to a family event tomorrow, so we're taking that with, and it needs to set overnight. So while he bakes, I'm going to be finishing up here. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I will very shortly be launching a brand new series on this channel where I will be making my dream summer wardrobe. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those future episodes. But along with that, I've actually been gathering all of the patterns that I'd like to make this year. And I've put it all into a library, like kind of like a database, and it's got pictures and links and everything. So if you'd like to get that database that I'll be working off of this year, it's completely free, by the way. You just need to sign up to my email newsletter, which you can find in the link below. And yeah. While my husband made the milk tarts, I hemmed the end of the sleeves and got to work on creating the shirred stitches. Here's all my prep pieces ready for construction. This looks very cute. This is exactly the vibe that I was going for, so that might give you a better idea. However, this part over here that would be going around my bicep barely touches. So yeah, the sleeves don't fit. What I didn't actually take into consideration is the bodice and the sleeve pattern that I'm using is for a bathing suit, so it's for stretchy fabric. So just the 8 centimeters that I added onto the sleeve just for that extra puffiness did not take into account the extra fabric that I would need to actually fit around my bicep and be able to sew it together. What I think I might need to do is take the sleeve pattern that I drafted earlier and maybe add another 8 centimeters on. I don't actually think I've got enough fabric, and if I don't have enough fabric, I don't know. I am so unbelievably blessed. This is literally all of the fabric that we had left, and our new sleeve pattern literally fits almost exactly. I think an extra 12 centimeters should be enough. I'm hoping. But if I mess it up this time, we literally do not have another option other than to make the dress without sleeves, which is obviously not what I want at all.
I think South Africans will be what the heck is that?
A Mexican making a very, very South African dish. We've got our new sleeves, and I think that they are just perfect. The exact vibe I was going for. They're actually going to fit, so I will take that as a win. We're finally constructing our dress, starting with the bodice pieces and the interfacing. Once the bodice pieces and interfacing were attached, we could just join them together with good sides facing. I measured the back neck hole to find the center where I'll create the keyhole and attach our tie. I worked very slowly to make sure the facing and neck hole were matching up perfectly. I then cut the keyhole open while simultaneously cutting our tie in half. I finished off by making small snips to help the pieces lay flat. Although I had absolutely every intention to finish this dress last night, I was busy doing the interfacing. Sorry, these jeans are quite tight. I was busy doing the interfacing and my back pain just got out of hand. Like I just got this incredibly painful back spasm. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I'm not super surprised because, I mean, I think all of the leaning over and the forward head posture of sewing all the time, it definitely leads to more back pain. Since I started sewing a few months ago, I've definitely had a lot of upper back pain that I never used to have before. But last night, it just went into this crazy spasm. I had to take a pill. I never take medication. It was so painful. So, long story short, I did not finish my dress last night, but it's okay. We're almost there. I just need to do a nice top stitch to make sure that our interfacing sits nice and flat. We need to add the sleeves, add the skirts, join them all together, do a hem, and then we're done. But so far, so good. I'm loving the way that the top of this dress has turned out with the little ties at the back, and oh, it's looking lovely so far. I did a top stitch on the facing to keep it on the inside of the garment and attached the sleeves starting at the underarm, working my way towards the basting stitch. Okay, we've got our first sleeve on and it's looking very promising. So I just wanted to give this a try. I'm so happy with this so far. Now it's time to attach the skirt. I think that the best thing to do is instead of trying to start on one end and work my way down, I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out, finish the stitch, and then come back and start in the middle again and work my way out, just to ensure that I have like equal spacing. Okay, so for this, I'm going to make sure that my needle is in the middle. I'm on a straight stitch with a length of 2.5. I'm just going to be pulling the bodice as far as it can possibly go. Okay, so my bodice didn't make it all the way to the end of the skirt piece, but I don't think that's a huge problem. What's going on here? I don't think that's a huge problem. We can fix that. Yeah, that's quite cool. I don't know if you guys can see it. Creates that like kind of bunched up effect. So this is the amount of skirts that we had left over. So what I think is I'll just ignore it for now. And then when I've got the other, oh hi my babs, when I've got the front skirt on, when we go to fold the whole garment over, like in half, to attach it down the sides, I can just attach the skirts down the sides and cut off those end pieces and then just do a zigzag stitch to close it up. I don't think it's a huge train smash that it doesn't right now fit perfectly. Yes, my bumpy. Yes, my bumpy. Tell everyone that you're a very needy boy today. Okay, so we've got both of our skirts attached. They look great. Now, literally all I need to do is turn my dress inside out, pin it all the way from the sleeves all the way down to where the bottom of the bodice meets, and then we're going to have to figure out exactly how much I need to cut off of the skirt pieces. What else? Oh, the hem, and then we have a dress. All right, so we have got a fully shirred dress, and I am so happy with how it turned out. I think it's so cute, it's so flattering, it's so comfortable because of the stretchiness. I'm just in awe of the fact that we were able to take a bathing suit pattern, a skirt pattern, combine them together and come up with something that looks like this. I'm definitely going to be making a few more. Definitely a white linen, a black linen, maybe like a fun, colorful print. I think this would be so nice in a lot of different colors. My takeaways from this project. The shirring took so long. It took like 2 days for me to just do the front and the back piece. I don't know if I'm just a very slow sewist, but if you're thinking of learning how to shirr, I'm just going to let you know now, you need to know that you're going to be locked in for hours. However, I really thought that it was going to be a more difficult technique than what it actually is. But really, after you figure out all of the settings on your machine and you get the feel of it, it's actually not that difficult. And it's such a flattering technique. I love it. I'm so happy that I can do this now. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you can let me know by leaving a secret emoji, which today it's going to be a zebra, of course. Just to remind you, I made a Notion template that has got all of the patterns that I've already made with links and photos. And then it's also got all of the patterns that I'm planning on making this summer, and they are stunning. So if you want free access to that, all you need to do is subscribe to my email newsletter down below. And I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you are thinking of learning how to sew yourself, or you just love to sew, I would really encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. And that being said, we will see you in the next one. Hasta luego!
Bright lights, cities asleep, can be a wild night. I wanna keep you close. Hey, hey, tonight we are the hot shots. Let's go somewhere we might get caught in the moment. Hey, hey, are you ready for